First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to acknowledge my little sister? This situation is so disgusting, but here we go. My mother-in-law hooked up, she claims it was only once, with my father at a pre-wedding celebration. My parents have a dead marriage, and my in-laws are hot and cold about each other. I don't think there were any feelings, but my dad is a huge creep, and she is from a race he has always fetishized, and mother-in-law acts out when things aren't about her. No one knew about the hookup, and everyone thought it was just a surprise baby at 42. Father-in-law ended up leaving her at the hospital because he said it looked like a white man's baby. She came home and admitted everything right in front of me. We lived with them at the time. And then said father-in-law cheated on her 12 years ago, and she always said he was going to know how it felt. The child is 7 now. She knows that my dad is her bio dad, and he sees her occasionally, but she is closer to father-in-law and calls him daddy. For some messed up reason, my in-law's marriage seems better than before, and my husband adores his little sister. I've never been a kid person, so I don't pay much attention to her, but it makes me uncomfortable when they use the word sister. Mother-in-law doesn't push her on me, but will say something like, ask your sister if she wants red wine or white, and it makes me so uncomfortable. I ask a mother-in-law not to use that word and to just refer to me as her brother's wife, but she said that would confuse sister-in-law. It makes me so uncomfortable that I share a sibling with my husband, and it isn't something people would expect because everyone involved is upper/middle class and respectable. My husband says that was a cold thing to ask mother-in-law, and I was being rude. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. It's a weird situation, and there's no right way to navigate it. You should all be compromising and respectful of each other's wishes. She's being raised by your husband's family and not yours, so makes sense she's more a sister to him and not to you. Mother-in-law doesn't get to determine the relationship you have to her, and if you rather see her as sister-in-law, that's okay, as long as you're kind to her and make sure she knows she's still your family. All true, but she can't make mother-in-law have her sister/sister-in-law. Man, what a confusing situation. Call anything, and biologically they're half-sisters. So I'm going not the a-hole, but don't see OP getting her way. Not the a-hole. The whole thing is bizarre. You have the right to enforce a boundary though. It's not either of your fault that mother-in-law decided to sleep with your father. She's being raised by mother-in-law and father-in-law. You're her sister-in-law, brother's wife, and just exile it to her. Asking them not to call you sister is reasonable, as long as you're not mistreating her. At some point, there will be questions. Why are my brother and sister married? Is that normal? They're going to have a lot of explaining to do. Not the a-hole. That sounds like some crazy soap opera. What does your mom feel about this? I think that you could ask if you two could just call each other by first names and not stress the sister part because, yeah, it's really weird. My mom is extremely angry, but will never leave my dad because she doesn't work. What makes it worse is mother-in-law had been rude to her in the past and then said it was my mom's fault for letting herself go. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for wanting to talk to the woman responsible for my parents' divorce? When I was 10, my parents divorced. It was very messy. I didn't know at that time, but they had a real Charles Diana Camilla thing going on, and after years of watching my dad love another woman, my mother finally cracked and divorced him. It was acrimonious, and it did a lot of damage to me that I'm working out in therapy. My father married his mistress 30 days after the divorce between him and mom was made final. Ultimately, Angie couldn't handle things. My parents' friends and my mom badmouthed her in our small town. I was a little craphead. My dad's parents and family were awful to her. She was put through the ringer, and the marriage fell apart after 2 years. I never saw her after that. My dad never really moved on from Angie. Turns out, he really loved her. I'm now in my 20s, and my therapist suggested I talk to the people in my life connected to the divorce. My father was happy to talk. Mom was reticent. I found Angie. She lives a town over. I sent her a message on Facebook asking to speak. She declined me. I sent another, messaging in greater detail explaining why I wanted to speak, and that I hold nothing against her any longer, that I'm just looking for closure, and I think she could be helpful. Once again, Angie declined to speak to me. She told me she had managed to move on, and she wasn't interested in rehashing the past. I told her talking to me was the least she could do to help me move on, since she was partially the cause of my childhood trauma. Angie blocked me. As a last-ditch effort, I went to her house. She's in the phone book. Her address is public. Angie wouldn't answer the door and threatened to call the cops if I didn't leave her alone. I don't understand why she won't talk to me. I'm just asking for a little help, a little clarity. She was instrumental in the downfall of my parents' marriage and a catalyst for an incredibly bad divorce. I feel like she owes me a little. Just a little. Am I the a-hole for trying to talk to Angie? Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole. Angie owes you nothing. Leave the poor lady alone. Honestly, I might get downvoted for this, but I agree that Opie has no sense of boundary. The first message should have been the last. Also, I'm kinda glad she didn't have the happy ending she envisioned when she cheated with a married man who has a child. Edit. I read through Opie's comment, and the whole situation is a crap show. Like Opie's dad really wanted to eat his cake and have it. Shaking my head. Angie was a victim of Opie's dad, and in a way, so was Opie's mom, though she's still a massive a-hole for the way she handled everything when she was aware of how things were. You're the a-hole. You wouldn't be the a-hole if you just reached out to her and asked, but you did. She said no, as was her right, and then you continued to pester her. She has every right to not want to talk to you. But then, I want to be clear about how utterly horrendous this part is. You went to her house. Holy crap, you're the a-hole. Going to her house was a complete a-hole move. That's so creepy. You're the a-hole. You were okay to reach out on Facebook, but you really took things too far when you went to her house. She obviously didn't want to reconnect, and you were not considerate of her feelings. You needed to respect her wishes. I think the first message on Facebook was okay. The second was pushing it. Beyond that, Opie's actions were wildly inappropriate. Now, for the next story. Am I the a-hole for saying I'm a better dad this time around? My daughter took it the wrong way. I was 28 and my ex-wife was 27 when we had our daughter, 26. Our son was born 3 years later. We were both young and saddled with financial problems. I was working 80-plus hours weeks to climb the ladder and to at least make my expensive degree worth it. My ex-wife and I fought all the time because I felt pressured to marry after she got pregnant, and I felt she could have worked more. Therefore, growing up, my 2 older kids did have to experience me coming home at 10 p.m., missing award ceremonies, and canceling vacation plans. I also find it crazy how I berated my kids for academic performance, in a way I could never imagine doing so now. I fought with my ex-wife about money, and would sometimes return clothes she bought for the kids when I saw they came from department stores, rather than stores with Target-level affordability, because I didn't get why kids needed that. I also took arguments into screaming matches and left in a very bad way. I admit I have a strained relationship that I'm now repairing with my kids. My daughter now comes over to the house I share with my new wife a couple times a month, and sometimes stays over. My wife, 28, just gave birth a year ago. I'm now in a high-level position at my company, so I can step out whenever and get myself days off, so I like planning fun activities and surprising my wife with going shopping or date night. When my daughter is here, I invite her to come along if we're doing something family stuff. Her attitude varies a lot, but I let it go because she's getting therapy and treats her 1-year-old brother well. However, yesterday we all went shopping and my wife is in the process of remodeling our son's room. My daughter kicked up an attitude when my wife wanted to go to the home section of Bloomingdale's and pick out items. She also wanted to buy some new clothes. When my wife was out of earshot, my daughter asked why she needed to buy kids stuff from an upscale department store, and the baby wouldn't remember the clothes ever. I had the same argument when I was younger, but I learned that sometimes it doesn't matter what I think works, and I'd rather just make my wife happy. So I told her to stop bringing up the age-old arguments about upscale goods. Then I told her that I thought the same way as her in the past, but I've learned a lot about compromise over the years. I then mentioned that I feel happy for a chance to do it right this time, and I'm a better dad this time around. And this was a new beginning, a second chance. She immediately teared up and said, "Congrats, guess you changed." She wouldn't accept my explanation that included being a better dad to her too, and ended up Ubering back to her apartment. Am I the a-hole? This statement was meant to say I've done wrong and I'm doing better, but she's acting like I mortally insulted her in some way. She now refuses to respond to any form of outreach by me. Now for the top comments. I fought with my ex-wife about money and would sometimes return clothes she bought for the kids when I saw they came from department stores rather than stores with Target-level affordability, because I didn't get why kids needed that. You're the a-hole. You are such a hypocrite. Your current wife buys from the department store and you said nothing. Yet, you rather disparage your daughter for bringing up the past. You didn't change. You are still the same a-hole. Replying to you because you're the top post. But holy crap, I feel so bad for the daughter. And also the son. Daughter got an absent dad. And when he was present, he sounds like he was a verbally abusive dad. Example, the schoolwork part. 2 resentful parents. Both parents fighting all the time. Which from personal experience does a number on you. Being poor is equal to not being able to afford stuff like decent clothes. And if that wasn't bad enough, now she gets to see her dad be a good dad to her much younger sibling? Talk about putting salt in an open wound. I would definitely be thinking that my dad was capable of being a decent dad all this time, but never bothered with me. Man, this is heartbreaking. You're the a-hole. You did, in fact, mortally insult both your children and your ex-wife. I understand how things unfolded, but you'd be a willfully ignorant a-hole to ignore the obvious hurt your actions have caused. You went and created a replacement family, let alone one you're willing to spoil, without actively trying to connect with your older children now. Just letting them into your home and onto activities isn't enough. That's shallow. They may crave forming a relationship with you as their father, or they don't. And if they don't, then it's their right to step away from you, and all the hurt your actions played part in causing them. You're the a-hole. You were a crappy, absent parent the first time around. You're lucky your kids even speak to you. And now they get to watch you be a good, hands-on, present father with their sibling. You think they're supposed to be happy watching what they missed out on? You couldn't change for them, but you can change for your third child? Please, tell us in detail how this is supposed to make your older 2 children feel happy and loved and secure. I would love to know your reasoning here. You skipped out on them and started over with your shiny new family. Not to mention the fact you married a woman only 2 years older than your daughter. How exactly have you changed into a better father for your older 2 children? In what ways have you acknowledged the pain that you caused them? What is the genuine apology you have proffered and the reparations you have at least attempted to make? You don't get to do this. You don't get to go out after neglecting your older 2 children and start a brand new family. Then expect them to smile about it and play like everything was always okay. How are you not the a-hole here? Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to buy stuff for my step-siblings? I, 16 female, work, and I buy most, if not all, the food I eat. I also get to buy video games and things like that when something good comes out. I don't ever have to ask my dad or his wife for money. But sometimes, my step-siblings, step-sister 15 female and step-brother 14 male, will ask me for money, or for some of the food I bought, or they'll want me to buy them a video game. I have always said no, and now that they're both technically old enough, I tell them to babysit or get some kind of job where they can pay for that stuff. My dad's wife doesn't like it. She says what's mine is technically hers and my dad's, and it should be shared. I told her I work for it though, and I've worked in some capacity since I was 14, and I sometimes got money when I was 13 to pick up groceries for a neighbor, which I started doing to help her out, but she would pay me a little sometimes. She went on about family again, and then my dad told me it was selfish of me not to be more inclusive of my siblings. He and I talked one-on-one where I told him we weren't siblings, that they only wanted something from me because I have money and they don't. But they never gave a crap about us being a family either. We have never acted or lived as a family. Before this stuff really got annoying, we lived as 2 separate families. And once my step-sibling started asking my dad, and his wife started acting like we were siblings who'd known each other a long time. But even now it has only been 3 years since I first met her kids and her. They were together 2 years before they got married, and we weren't introduced before then. My dad still thinks I should consider them my family and should be more selfless and loving because we'll always be in each other's lives. And he was mad that I didn't consider them family because he said step-family is still family. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You are not obligated to share possessions you've paid for yourself or give them the money you've earned. This would be the same, even if they were full siblings. If your stepmom and dad don't want them to earn their own money, they should be the ones to buy them what they want. Not the a-hole. Whether step-families are immediate families or not is a whole different debate. But you absolutely should not be expected to spend your hard-earned money or share your personal belongings with anyone, full-blood siblings included. Not the a-hole. Even if you were a biological family or you felt yourselves as a real family, you still didn't have to give them your money. It is your money that you worked for it, and you should be able to spend it as you like. And since they are able to work, they should work for themselves if they need money. Not the a-hole. But I hope you have a bank account without anyone else's name on it. There are plenty of stories where parents have drained their kids' accounts. If your dad is on the account, I would find a completely new bank and open an account there, as it's nearly impossible to remove someone from an account, then close the old account. Am I the a-hole for telling my son I was disappointed after he and his wife lied about my grandson's birth date? My son, 23, and his wife just had a baby boy. Everyone is overjoyed and excited, but there have been some issues that has risen recently. When my daughter-in-law was pregnant, I suggested that I host a welcoming party for my grandson right after she got discharged from the hospital. I've made arrangements and even emptied a room for them to stay, but for some reason she was against it and said she'd rather spend the first few weeks at home with her newborn. Not only that, but she said no to the welcoming party. My husband and I talked to my son and he said we'll see. But just a couple days ago, we found out that my daughter-in-law had given birth 2 weeks ago, and no one knew about it. My nephew told me and I immediately called my son, and he confirmed it. He and his wife lied, then hid the date of birth from the family. I told him this was not acceptable, lying just because they didn't want a welcoming party and love and support being given from the family. I told him I was disappointed because 1, he ruined our welcoming for our grandbaby. And also, I invited family members and they're all rightfully disappointed as well. He said it was his last resort after I kept pushing and made his wife uncomfortable. But that was not appreciated because we were just trying to celebrate the new family member in a proper manner. We had an argument, and he ended a call upon saying I ruined his joy for his newborn. My husband started texting him since he stopped replying to our phone calls, and I was threatening to block my nephew for tattling. But I think that my nephew was decent enough to inform the family. Otherwise, God knows how long my son and his wife were going to hide their son just to keep us at arm's length. We've always been kind and welcoming to my daughter-in-law and her family, so I don't know why she would do this and disrespect the family like that. On the other hand, some family members see it as a justified action because we insisted on a party. P.S. Some folks, I'd appreciate it if you leave my nephew, male 24, out of this conflict, because he's not part of it. Now for the top comments. Welcoming party is a nice way of saying exposing a newborn to all sorts of disease during a pandemic. You're the a-hole, always and forever. You are not entitled to put this child in danger. Edit. The people talking about the danger to and exhaustion of the mother are 1,000,000% right. I'm sorry for not including it. Honestly, where I'm from, you don't visit a baby until it has passed 2 weeks, not to give it or the mother any disease regardless of the plague. Even 2 weeks is when you're really close, like a close cousin. For real. My mother-in-law forced a surprise welcoming party on us, but she at least had a basic decency to wait 2 weeks. It was still hell though. Edit. For those asking, no, a welcoming party is not actually a real thing. Everybody but her called it a baby shower. Only her family, who I had never met, was invited. I say hell because I was still bleeding heavily. Had a tear in my labia, my breasts were excruciating basketballs. Hadn't slept in 2 weeks and spent most of the time alone in a bedroom trying to figure out breastfeeding. You're the a-hole. It's not about you. Also, she was against it and said she'd rather spend the first few weeks at home with her newborn. Not only that, but she said no to the welcoming party. My husband and I talked to my son and he said we'll see. Mom said no. So you went behind her back to your son, which is disrespectful and insensitive to her wishes. And he clearly wasn't on board either. It sounds like they felt pressured into lying about it after you were so insistent on a party. Also again, he ruined our welcoming for our grandbaby. Wrong. You ruined the welcoming for him and his wife. You should feel horrible for that, and for putting them in that position to begin with. They obviously pushed it so hard that son and daughter-in-law were convinced they would just be there waiting at the house when they got home from the hospital. Opie needs to work on respecting boundaries if she ever wants to have a close relationship with her grandson, and will have to get used to a lot of disappointment if they continue their a-hole behavior. 100% and Opie, you're the a-hole. I'm a newly postpartum mom, and my mother-in-law boundaries dumped, and my baby does to death. So much that we haven't asked her over in 4+ weeks, and she gets very limited information. We also didn't tell anyone we were in the hospital the first day. It was glorious to concentrate on the task at hand without people constantly berating us. Babies don't belong to grandparents, and you can't make demands/act entitled to someone else's child, or treat people however you want. Just because you want something or think it should be a certain way doesn't make it true. You'd be wise to love them the way they're asking to be loved and respect some boundaries. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for being hostile and rude to my sister's boyfriend over a joke he told my wife? My sister, 26, brought her new boyfriend, 30, over to our parents' house to meet him for the first time. My wife and I came as well. We met the dude. He seemed okay-ish at first, but he then started asking weird and personal questions. My wife had breast cancer and got a single mastectomy last year. She told the story to my sister's boyfriend, and he was like, "Oh." Then he stared at my wife briefly, then playfully said, "Without even asking, I can pretty much tell which one got the blow." We were floored. My wife could barely keep a straight face, and she lied so she could leave the table because she was literally about to tear up. I just looked at the dude and said, "Are you serious?" And he said, "What? I was just joking, bro." I started asking him to explain the joke to me, and he just stared. I asked him again to explain it to me in details, but still got no answer. My sister asked me to stop because clearly he got uncomfortable, but I insisted he explain the joke to me because clearly my wife and I didn't get it. Things got awkward with him avoiding eye contact while I just stared at him the entire time. I still insisted. I'd asked him to explain the joke right there and then, but seconds later he said he needed to step outside to make a phone call. Turns out he got in his car and left. My sister had a meltdown screaming and berating me for how I treated her boyfriend, calling me hostile with anger issues to scare her boyfriend out of our parents' house. I told her he was overstepping and made my wife uncomfortable to the point of crying. She actually called my wife such a princess and said she is soft and cannot take some teasing. I had an argument with her, and my parents intervened. I just took my wife and left. My dad called me later and said that he understood how hurt my wife felt. But my sister's boyfriend was visiting for the first time and I showed hostility and aggression instead of just ignoring him. He encouraged me to reach out to him and my sister later and talk it out, but I declined. Am I the a-hole? Edit. My sister and my wife don't have a history, but my sister tends to see the worst in people. When my wife announced her diagnosis, my sister actually thought she was faking because the family no longer brought up my wife's miscarriage months prior. I thought that was out of line and she apologized for it and we moved on. But my sister thinks that the only bad trait she sees in her boyfriend is a smoking habit. She says that otherwise he's perfect. Shaking my freaking head. Not stay home. Congratulations, you handled the situation perfectly. You simply asked the a-hole to explain himself. He couldn't. He doubled down. He chose not to apologize, which could have diffused the whole situation. What? I was just joking, bro. This is always code for I'm an a-hole, but I'm going to let myself off the hook. It's right up there with I'm not racist, but... And I'm just being brutally honest. 100% agreed. The just a joke bro crowd is never funny. Opie's insistence that he explained the joke is something I tend to do when confronted with that as well, and the reaction he got from the boyfriend is completely expected. Sister should be ashamed of both her taste in men and her attitude towards Opie's wife. Opie's family clearly enables her behavior since he got the whole "don't rock the boat" speech from dad. Opie's not a-hole, and frankly my hero for how he stood up for his wife. Not a-hole. What's so hostile about asking him to explain his stupid freaking joke? Some people think that anything less than fawning over their jokes is aggressive. I noticed it a lot when I started asking my family, "Oh, I don't understand a joke. Can you explain it to me?" Well, they'd make racist comments and say they were jokes. Nah, jokes are funny and you're not being funny, just a jerk. Me not laughing at them was considered rude, and asking them to explain how racism is hilarious was aggressive. But this is only called aggressive by the people who are the original a-holes, or those who enable a-holery. It's a perfect response and very helpful for weeding a-holes from your life. Well done. Not the a-hole, and I honestly commend your restraint. Not sure I could have held back as much as you did in similar circumstances. Sometimes people don't have anger issues. They just have wholly valid anger. Normally, I do my best to keep calm and collected. It takes huge amounts of effort to get a reaction out of me. It's just how I am, and unfortunately people do try to test me oftentimes. Next story. Am I the a-hole for banning mother-in-law from being around my 2 underage kids after she said she should have my stepdaughter removed by CPS? I have a stepdaughter, Ava, 26, and 2 bio daughters, Claire, 16, and Emily, 14. I really did my best to bond with Ava, but she just wasn't into it. We did family therapy, individual therapy, but Ava was never okay with the idea of having step-parents. Mom was also remarried. She was a good kid, and just kept to herself. Ava's getting married, and mother-in-law's freaking out because Ava doesn't want a lot of post pictures. Ava really just wants pictures with a groom and to skip the family pictures. I didn't hear this conversation, but apparently Ava told mother-in-law that she would take pictures with her and father-in-law, but she had been dreading the big family pictures because she hates pretending she has 2 families when really she just didn't have one. My husband gently confronted Ava when mother-in-law told him what she said, and Ava said he didn't do anything wrong, but she just hates pretending we are a real family. That was hard on him, and he has been beating himself up over it. Mother-in-law won't let go of it, and has been crying about how she didn't know how bad it was for Ava, and she should have saved her. Mother-in-law recently burst into tears very dramatically in front of my husband, Claire, and Emily, and said she should have called CPS on us and gotten custody of Ava. We demanded to know what was CPS worthy, and she said she could have made something up, but if Ava was so unhappy, she should have been removed. I asked her if she would really lie to CPS, and she said yes, and that Ava probably would have been a good actress and could have convinced them. I was freaked out by this conversation. I decided if she really thinks that is okay, I don't want her around Claire and Emily. My husband is torn. The kids don't care either way, but mother-in-law says I'm dramatic and insane, and Ava told her dad that I can do whatever I want. But if mother-in-law can't be around them, the 4 of us can be the ones to not come to the wedding. I actually didn't mind her being around them at the wedding. It meant more she is banned from our house and we won't be going to any family events. My husband is now upset and feels I overreacted. Now for the comments. Not stay home. Mother-in-law is nuts and having a meltdown about somebody else's wedding. If she's threatening false CPS reports, she doesn't need to be anywhere near your family. Not to mention mother-in-law is delusional to think that her getting custody of Ava would have magically fixed all of the problems she perceived. Like if only she'd been the one to have custody, then Ava would want to take big family photos. She's throwing an overdramatic temper tantrum with very real and consequential threats, and I don't blame Opie for not wanting that anywhere near her family. Not stay home, but that is not a problem here. Husband being a freaking pushover is. What your mother-in-law said is completely inappropriate, and your husband should see it as what it was, a threat to your family. If he can't see that, then it is maybe worth reevaluating your relationship with him. Not stay home, but your husband should have A, recorded that crap, and B, gone no contact. If my mother-in-law threatened my kids like that and my spouse was that spineless, it would be insta-divorce and seeking a restraining order against the mother-in-law. Like I would get in the car and drive to a shark of a lawyer. Not stay home. You're being dramatic and insane? She's the one saying she should have lied to CPS, and acting like that would have been a reasonable thing to do. Threatening your daughter-in-law with CPS, even retroactively, is the nuclear bomb in family relationships like this. Also, I personally find it morally repugnant to use an agency that exists to protect children in legitimate situations of neglect and mistreatment to manipulate or enact revenge on someone else. That's pretty much fraud and theft of those resources. That is what she's casually suggesting was the right thing to do here, which is horrifying. I wouldn't want someone like that around my kids either. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for telling him his dog is absolutely destroying me and my kids' quality of life? My fiancé just got a dog about 2 years ago that has made me and my kids hate being home. That's coming from people who love dogs, including the multiple dog foster home over the years. This dog is untrainable. She has been in behavioral training and other basic training for a year and a half, and there has been zero change in her behavior at all. She whines constantly, nips at your face to get your attention and draws blood damn near every single time, rips food from your hands, bites your ears while you are trying to drive because she is pissed that you won't let her sit in your lap, gets in the garbage and will snarl at you if you reprimand her, etc. The only thing she's actually sticking with on the training is going to the bathroom outdoors. To say I'm done is an understatement. She's a small dog, so this is unnecessary, but she truly hurts people, nipping and digging constantly. 2 weeks ago, I completely freaking lost it after multiple conversations with my fiancé about the dog. He insisted on bringing her with us to the store one day because this dog is basically his pride and joy and cannot see any wrongdoings that she's actually doing. So he insists on bringing her, and while driving, she jumped in my lap and gutted me. Complete loss of breath, dug the heck out of my stomach, etc. Not even 10 minutes later, she reaches up and rips my Slim Jim out of my mouth. I flipped out and told him he had until the end of the month to find her somewhere else to go, because I've had it and she's no longer welcome at my home. My fiancé keeps saying he will just try harder on training despite us bending backwards as it is, spending over $12,000 in training alone for it to do absolutely nothing. Wasting 3 days a week to go to training with her because it's important, but nope. So anyways, last night my daughter and I finished a project we had been working on for months. We wove a 12 by 12 blanket together made up of our old shirts and blankets. We hung it up in the garage to dry the glue around the seams. My fiancé brought the dog out and ended up hanging out in the garage with his buddy Chris. And like 15 minutes later, he comes inside apologizing because this animal destroyed at least 4 feet of this blanket we just finished. At this point, I told him I have never in my life hated an animal the way I hate this dog. And she has completely destroyed me and my kids' quality of life, and I'm done. Either he gets rid of the dog or he leaves with her. Those are the only 2 options at this point. He says I'm an a-hole for allowing a dog to ruin my life, and says if I would just calm down then I would see she isn't that bad. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Any dog who has been through $12,000 worth of training and still bites people is a dog that doesn't belong living with people who aren't absolute pet experts. I have to agree with this comment. I'm just stunned that it hasn't gotten better. I mean, 12,000 is a lot of training hours. Except training only works if it's reinforced at home, which I very much doubt the man in question is doing. Training classes aren't magic. The dog isn't going to suddenly have an epiphany that, oh, this is what they want me to do at home. You have to continue what they're learning at home. Not stay home. The dog probably has potential, but your fiancé's refusal to see her behavior as problematic has made her a menace. Really, it's not the dog that's ruined your quality of life. It's the fiancé for his refusal to be consistent with training.
My friend is about to ask his girlfriend to marry her, and I'm the only one who knows how unfaithful she is. Do I say anything? Plus updates. Original post. Not sure if this belongs in this sub because it isn't my relationship I'm asking for advice about. If not, apologies. So my good friend Aaron and his girlfriend Mary have been together for almost 7 years. They meet in college and are in a very close relationship. Personally, I would call them extremely codependent. Neither of them really has any friends aside from each other. She doesn't let him have guy friends. In fact, she doesn't let him do a lot of things. He's not allowed to go out past 11, not allowed to drink or smoke. She has to approve of all of his friends. And he's not allowed to be alone with other girls. She's got this guy on a tight leash. The reason why they're still together is that Aaron is completely whipped, and to him she can do no wrong. He talks regularly about how amazed he still is that she finds him attractive. He's a decent looking guy, but she's like supermodel level good looking. They post cutesy couple photos every day. I'm pretty sure she makes him post them, and to everyone who sees them, they appear to be the perfect magical fairy tale couple. Anyway, a few weeks ago, he told my boyfriend and I that he was planning on proposing to Mary. Of course, we congratulated him because he seemed super excited. Now here's the issue. A few weeks prior to this, I hung out with a friend of Mary, Allison. Allison told me about a party they went to where Mary got drunk and slept with her ex. After the party, they began hooking up regularly, and she had a group session with him and a friend of his. Aaron has no knowledge of these hookups. I told my boyfriend about it because he shares my friendship with both of them, and he believes that we need to say something, but I'm not so sure how to even go about that. It will destroy him, ruin their entire relationship, and maybe a friendship as well. However, I think in the long term he will be unhappy with a marriage where she's so controlling. Not even that, but if she's completely okay with cheating on her long-term partner, it will be the same once they're married. Is telling him the right thing to do. Edit, to clarify, the cheating has not been going on for 6 years as far as I'm aware, and the hookups occurred recently. Now for the top advice before reading the updates. Tell him before it's too late. He's your friend. You gotta let him know. Ouch, poor guy. I feel for him. I'd want to know. I feel the same way. I ran into a very similar situation. My wife and I shared a 2-bedroom apartment with another married couple that we met on CL. My wife went to a party with his wife one weekend. They had some drinks, and his wife pointed to a guy at the party and just straight up told her, "See that guy? I've been betting him." My wife was shocked. They weren't very close, and she just dropped a bomb on her. So the next day my wife confided in me this story, to where my first reaction was, we definitely have to tell him. Well, I sat him down alone, I believe the next day, and told him everything I was told. Told him I'm sorry he had to hear it from me, but if I was him, I'd want to know. He was devastated but thanked me. He confronted her later on and she denied everything, called my wife and I some choice names. I believe liar and homewrecker was in there too. She cursed me out and was very hateful towards me as she moved her things out. In the end, he got a divorce and is now years later is happier. WTF. That's scary being in a relationship thinking everything alright but your significant other is smashing another person on the side. He might not take it very well, but I think you should tell him. He can do what he wants with the information, but as a friend, you should absolutely tell him before he marries this chick. I second this, but be prepared for him not to believe you. Especially in a codependent relationship, he will probably trust her word over yours. That's what I'm worried about. It's possible that he'll trust her word over yours if he's really blinded by love. But at the same time, why lie? You're all friends. There's no reason for you to tell him she's cheating other than it being the truth. Now for the first update. Some of the commenters are calling me a bad friend for not telling him immediately. So after giving it some thought and reading the comments, I have decided to tell him as soon as I can, most likely tonight if he's free to hang out. To those saying I'm being a bad friend for waiting, this is a huge deal, and it will greatly affect the future of Aaron, and I want to make sure I break the news in the correct way. This man is blinded by love. He's not going to be expecting this news at all, and his whole life is about to change. I'm definitely not going to do nothing, because he deserves much better than this woman, and he deserves to know the truth about what he's getting into if he still decides to marry her. I'm expecting a full-blown crap storm. I'm expecting him to be hurt, angry, in disbelief. So I don't believe it's wrong that I'm asking for a bit of advice on how to approach this. Should I have told him sooner? Maybe, but what difference would a few weeks make? For all those asking, I'll post an update when I do it. Update, I've talked to Aaron since I posted this, and he is coming over tonight to talk and hang out. My boyfriend and I are going to tell him together because he knows the situation as well. A few of you have suggested I talk to Mary first to give her a chance to come clean. While that's a good idea, I'm not as close to her as I am to Aaron, and I don't see that going over well. I would much rather tell him, and then leave it to him to decide what to do from there. Update, new information has been received from the third-party friend Allison. She has sent me screenshots of texts that do prove Mary has been involved with her ex. They send messages regularly and he has sent her private photos. Update, LMAO, I'll just mention that Aaron just got to our house, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll update later if I can. Thank you all so much for the kind messages and helping me work this hot mess out. I've been stressing about this all day, but I believe I am doing the right thing in telling him. Quick little edit. As of 11 Eastern Standard Time. We all talked for a good bit. I told him what I heard from Allison, and it went better than expected. But he was still pretty mad and upset. We are all just chilling and drinking now. I'll post the whole story tomorrow. Thanks again for all the replies. Now for the full update. So I got lots of feedback on what to do here. A good majority of the commenters told me to say something. To clarify, it may not have been clear in the original post, but I was never planning on doing nothing. Of course you gotta tell your bro if they're being cheated on. I just was not sure how to approach the situation. Some of the commenters gave me some very helpful advice. Some of you told me to talk to the girlfriend first. Some of you told me to wait. Some told me to gather a bunch of evidence first, which I ended up getting from Allison, the third-party friend. Some of you guys got angry with me for not telling him sooner, told me I was a bad friend. Some were sure he wouldn't believe me. Some predicted the girlfriend would deny it all. Well, all of you were somewhat right. Here's how it went down. I messaged Allison early on in the day, shortly after I made the post, because typing it all out brought my guilt and apprehension from the situation to the surface. I said to Allison that I needed to tell Erin and asked whether or not she had proof. This was when she sent me the screenshots of the text messages. Erin came over at around 8, and what was great was that Allison came over too. We all sat down and talked for a bit, and we all told him our suspicions about Mary. Allison showed him the text screenshots of Mary talking to her ex, and also told Erin all the stories she shared about her intimate encounters. What was the most surprising was his reaction. He took it very well. He first got very quiet and just nodded. Erin ended up telling us that he had a sneaking suspicion that something was going on. He was not aware of the hookups, but he and Mary had gotten into fights before over the fact that she doesn't allow him near any other girls, but she goes out and flirts with other guys all the time. He told us that she had been distant lately and would leave rather often without telling him where she was going. There were a few other small things he mentioned that told us he was just generally unhappy with his relationship. He knew in his gut something was wrong, but wanted to believe it wasn't true. We started unwinding with some alcohol after that, and it all got way more emotional. He cried, talking about how he felt stupid for not seeing it sooner, how he really loved her and would have given her anything. Then he got angry, at her and even more so at the guy. Some unpleasant and derogatory terms were used to describe her. Ultimately, he told us that he's going to be breaking it off, at least for now. We told him a million times how much better he deserved. He's definitely not going to marry her. Thanks again all for the supportive words and advice. We saved a good man from heartbreak. Now for the comments before the update 3 years later. She doesn't allow him near any other girls, but she goes out and flirts with other guys all the time. Every single time. Extreme jealousy is a projection. The craziest part is how they can disconnect the reasons for their jealousy from their partner's reciprocal feelings. Anybody who goes around and flirts with random strangers is a bad partner. Who's to say he won't just cheat on me? I mean, yeah, I'm going out and flirting and cheating. But error, brain connection missing. The old, we are the heroes of our own stories perception. You've got to push that self-critique down to get that level of protective over the same rules you're breaking yourself. I don't know. I chalk it more up to the it takes one to know one theory. It would never occur to me to check someone's Facebook PMs or Twitter DMs or whatever, but someone who cheated like that knows to look there, and since they don't respect them, they trample all over privacy. You did well, OP. Hopefully Mary doesn't try to manipulate him or convince him to stay. People like Mary have a knack for that. Keep by his side and make sure he has people stand up to her with him. The more help he can get through this. Also try and have him break things off over text or in public. Mary seems like the type to react very badly. Agreed here. I was in a manipulative relationship where the girlfriend took advantage of my inexperience and steady paycheck to feed her validation. Thankfully, my tolerance meter is quite low as it is, so this only lasted 3 months. However, the psychological damage was already done, and it took me years to fully come to terms with the situation. The part that I am still not able to shake off is how there were plenty of friends around me at the time who just let me stay in that disaster relationship without ever once stepping in to tell me to wake up. I am forever grateful to the real friends who did exactly that, 2 of whom were groomsmen at my wedding. Here for great friends who really care about their own. Edit, I understand the logic behind being wary of my possible bad reaction to people calling out how the girlfriend was a bad person, but I still believe that true friends don't leave you to stay in your misery. And here I am in a similar situation like yours, feeling a bit stupid because after 18 months of dating a master of gaslighting and victim complex, I still haven't fully recovered from that, even if 6 years have gone by. Latest update 3 years later. For anyone asking, they are married as of last summer. No clue how they're doing, as my boyfriend and I have cut all contact aside from like Facebook and stuff. They have a dog and wife wants kids now. Husband is still hella whipped. Your description of him gave off the impression he has very low self-esteem. You mix that in a bowl with someone controlling or worse like Mary, and you get the incredibly difficult task of trying to separate the flour from the salt. I hope he one day learns the self-worth to separate from that vile woman. We always got the vibe that he had low self-esteem and just settled for her because he didn't think he could do better. I feel bad for him, but also you gotta stand up to that crap. Being alone is better than being with a horrible person who doesn't care about you. That's why we kinda cut contact. We told him not to do it. You did everything you could. It reaches a point where the kindest thing to do is to let them experience the consequences of their actions. Honestly, you did what true friends do. You were honest and you supported him. The choice was his, and that's when you need to protect yourself. You don't want to see someone you care about throwing themselves into a wall. You tried to protect him, now protect yourself. It's not an easy path, and good on you for recognizing it. How frustrating to tell a friend all of this and then watching them carry on with the relationship anyway. We cut contact for this reason. Let them be stupid together, lol. I had a similar situation, but it was the guy cheating. Told my friend with screenshots and even evidence and face-to-face conversations from the girls he cheated with. My friend called us all liars. Friendship was ruined. She still married him. I hear the marriage is a fairly separate lives kind of thing, with them both doing their own thing. But he is rich and she was broke when they met. I guess money talks in this situation. And in yours, looks talk. Last story. I slept with my girlfriend's mom 2 years ago. I can't tell her because I know she'll dump me and it'll probably end her parents' marriage. So let me first just say, I'm not the one in the wrong for this, but I have to say it somewhere because it's eating me alive. 2 years ago when I was 19, I met this woman while I was working as a personal trainer. She was in her 40s and looked like a 25-year-old. She took an interest in me and invited me out a number of times, and we did it a few times. After one of our meetups, she said it was wrong for someone of her age to be with me because I was too young, then changed gyms. My girlfriend and I have been together for just under a year. She's amazing and I love her so much. 2 months ago, I met her family for the first time, and it was a shock. Like, she took me to the house where I had hooked up with a woman, and I felt like I was being pranked. Before I see her mom, it hits me. I have a type and they both fit that type, so it makes sense. I've been hooking up with a single mom, and I'm now with her daughter. Then her mom and dad pop out, and we both almost crap ourselves. I meet her parents, and they've been married for 20 years. I realize I have been a married woman's boy toy, and I feel incredibly ashamed. Later that week, her mom finds my number and tells me that I can never speak of what happened. She says that my girlfriend will hate me forever because I'll be the one who broke up her parents. So now I'm stuck keeping this secret. She invited me to spend Thanksgiving with her family, and since my family is 1,000 miles away and I already told her I don't plan on going home, I don't really have an excuse to not go. So now I'm going to have to sit there at a table and enjoy Thanksgiving dinner with the woman I had an affair with, her husband, and her daughter whom I am now in love with. I'm screwed. Now for the advice. Damn, the mother is certainly projecting and deflecting her guilt onto you. Not your fault, my dude. The guilt isn't yours to shoulder. Agreed. Your girlfriend would be upset with her mom more than anything. I mean, she should be, but when emotions are high, I'm sure she would take out anger on him too. You're right. Pretty sure she will be angry at both. She'll be more angry with you if this comes out years from now. I don't know, but if you're serious about the girl, she might need to know before too long. 1. Not your fault and you did nothing to be ashamed of. 2. Are you living in a village? LOL. We live in a city. I just got really unlucky. If the mom is hitting on personal trainers at the gym, chances are you weren't her first or last trip to the rodeo. So it was probably just a matter of time before she hooked up with her daughter's future boyfriend. Definitely her fault and not yours. She's definitely cheated with other people over the last 20 years. I'd say invite your girlfriend to a park or something and have her read this exact post. If she wants to break up with you, then you need to respect that. Like many other comments say, if you don't tell her and she manages to find out in the future, she's going to break up with you anyways. The Thanksgiving invitation is the perfect reason to finally tell her too. Explain you didn't feel like it was morally okay to sit at a family table being in that situation, and despite all your reservations, you had to tell her. If she was a good person, she'd understand how you feel, but she's also still allowed to not want to be with you anymore. Couldn't agree with this more. Damned if you do, damned if you don't, so just do the morally right thing in this situation. You never know, you still might be able to have your cake and eat it. Your girlfriend might look past it and stay with you for being morally adjusted, truthful, and trustworthy. But if she doesn't, you can hold your head high and be safe in the knowledge that you are a good person. Update. Had a threesomething with FWB, now she wants a relationship while I don't. Original post. She 28 female, has been in a friends with benefits relationship with me 27 male for the past year. Recently she told me that one of her fantasies is to have a MFM threesomething, and after some deliberation I agreed. We did it around 2 weeks ago, and I thought that was it. But yesterday, my FWB really surprised me by saying that she wants an exclusive relationship with me. Now I will be honest. I had asked her once or twice to become my girlfriend in the past, but she said she isn't ready. Now she is ready, but how do I tell her that I literally saw her be intimate with someone else right in front of my eyes, and I am not likely to forget that. Yes, we were not exclusive, but feelings were there. And I was able to convince myself of the group activity only after telling myself that we will never actually be in a relationship. I would never agree to a threesomething with someone I am dating. But how do I tell her all this without coming across as hurtful? Now for the top advice before reading the update. I think it's time to move on, buddy. Just say as much, ultimately you will hurt her, but that's how rejection works, and there's no way really around it. By the way, don't mention the threesomething, that's just asking for trouble. So, do I just say I'm not ready for a relationship with her? What if she asks what changed? Probably not, because that would mean you would likely be open to it in the future, which sounds like it is not the case. I would be honest, but it's up to you. Being honest here would likely just cause more drama. I was interested in a relationship with you, but ever since you told me that you weren't, I worked on letting go of my desire for that relationship. The only reason I accepted to do the threesomething was that I had accepted we wouldn't ever be in a relationship together, and I would have never accepted it if I knew a relationship was possible otherwise. But since it happened, I'm no longer comfortable with pursuing any romantic relationship. You can't control how she feels, all you can do is be honest about your situation. Since emotions are getting messy on both ends, I think it's best to sunset this situationship and move on. Thank you for not posting a generic comment like, communicate with her, and actually helping OP with the words. I agree that most problems posted here could have been easily solved had OP communicated with their partner, but people here don't realize that conveying one's emotions in the right words is not everyone's cup of tea. So, thank you for actually helping. It's not hurtful. You can and should tell her exactly that this is the reason you cannot have a relationship with her other than FWB, that you made peace with you two not being together. It's also a major red flag that she wants that after the group activity for a multitude of reasons. I would advise you to just be honest. She used you in a way. I don't think now I can even be in an FWB with her. It's getting complicated, and we both will get hurt. In fact, I will not have an FWB from now on. And now for the update. So I told her what most of you guys suggested. That my desire for a serious relationship with her ended after she turned me down 2 times. She then asked me why was I saying that I would start a relationship with her in a heartbeat if she asked. So I lied and said I was joking. She also asked if the group activity had anything to do with my decision, and I said no, my decision was made long before that. I don't think she was convinced with my answer, but I stuck to it. She tried to argue that we will make a very good couple, but I just told her it's not a possibility. I also told her that we should put our friendship on hold for some time, till the feelings subside and we actually see each other as friends rather than possible romantic partners. It goes without saying that our FWB arrangement is done, and I have decided that FWB is not for me. I can't keep feelings separate from the intimate act, and it would only be harmful to me. Thank you to everyone who chimed in with advice. That's some very mature reflecting on your own feelings about intimacy. Best of luck to you, mate. Thank you, and the only reason I accepted the FWB was because I thought I could change her mind. Stupid, I know, but at the time, I really wanted to be in a relationship with her. Now I realize you can't make someone love you, it should be mutual. Ironically, I think it did change her mind, hence why she asked for a relationship after. But it also changed your mind too. I don't know, I think honesty here would have been best. You state elsewhere you think it would have been cruel. I disagree. It may have been a bit of a hard pill to swallow, but people don't grow if they don't have the truth. Nothing wrong was done per se, but I think it's fair to tell her you were interested, went along with the FWB because she wasn't interested in anything serious. However, due to the other guy involved, you can't see this turning into anything serious after the fact. That isn't cruelty, that's just honesty. It would absolutely be cruel and unnecessary. She seems to have enjoyed the group activity and felt closer to OP because of it. She shouldn't have to add OP's baggage onto her experience after the fact. It won't do her any good, it'll just make her afraid to try new things or pursue this same thing again. The issue with the group activity was more than him seeing another dude bang her. She turned him down for a relationship twice. Additionally, the timing is suspect. She waited till she got her fun before asking to settle down and go exclusive. Gosh, do you think he'd have agreed to it if they'd gone exclusive first? Nope. But she cozied up to the idea of exclusivity and thought she could game the relationship with one last fling before closing that door. Good for OP, hope it was worth it FWB. Sure, it could be that she turned him down twice, but I'm pretty sure also seeing another person sleep with your love interest is a potential relationship ender for a lot of people. For some, it's a hard ending, and for others it's a strong kink. Sounds like OP and his FWB were never as compatible as either of them thought. Now for the second story. Update. Our marriage has been horrible for the past year. Wife's sister recently moved in. We have a lot of fun together. And it made me realize how unhappy I am in my marriage, and I want a divorce. Original post. My wife, 36 female, and I, 31 male, have been married for 3 years. Our marriage has been horrible for me in the last year. My wife is always angry, negative, lazy, and blames everything that goes slightly wrong in her life on somebody else except herself. I'm a very outgoing and motivated person and like to go out a lot. My wife is less outgoing, but used to always try make an effort to go out together and have fun. For the past year, she hasn't done anything in our marriage. She is addicted to her phone and TikTok and barely pays attention when I'm talking or we are doing something. We barely go out anymore, and if we do, she always finds something to get angry at, like a waiter taking a little too long. When we are out eating, she is on her phone watching TikToks and barely communicating with me. She always wakes up moody and angry and destroys the whole vibe. She curses in every other sentence she says, and huffs and puffs if she has to do something that normal grown adults have to. We have also not been intimate for the past 6 months, and it doesn't look like something is going to change. I always tell her how much I appreciate her and that I love her and try to do things together. But she always shuts me down when I suggest doing something because she is tired, but then proceeds to watch Netflix until 2 in the morning. She never even shows any affection or appreciation towards me. For the past year, I have tried to communicate to her that something needs to change in our marriage, but she just gets angry and avoids the conversation instead of talking. It has gotten to the point that I have stopped caring about our marriage and have just been going along and focusing on my personal life and goals. My wife's sister Lisa has recently gotten out of a long-term relationship and has moved in with us temporarily. Lisa is the complete opposite of my wife. She is happy, vibrant, talks, and just fun to be around. Ever since she moved in, we have been spending a lot of time together because my wife doesn't do anything else than watch Netflix and talking to her friends on FaceTime when she is home. On the rare occasions she is not doing one of these things, she is out with her friends. Lisa is a very active person, so we do a lot of activities together. She joins me when I go to the park to get some fresh air, she helps me cook when I'm preparing dinner, and even works out with me in my home gym. I always try to get my wife to tag along with us, but she never does. Spending all this time with Lisa has totally changed my mood. Being around a person that is positive and doesn't complain about every single thing in their life is so refreshing and fun. But don't get the wrong idea, we have never done anything inappropriate, we have just become really good friends that lift each other up. The past couple of months since Lisa moved in have made me realize how unhappy I'm in my marriage. Having someone around you that is constantly complaining, cursing, and angry drains every bit of energy you have. It's depressing, and that's not how I want my life to be. I want to be with someone positive who shows that they care about me and want to have new experiences together with me. I have tried so hard for the past year to make my marriage work with my wife, but I just get shut down. I don't feel loved anymore and appreciated, and I don't want to be in this position anymore. I want a divorce so I can move on with my life and find someone who actually loves me and cares for me. I have officially checked out of my marriage and don't want to turn back anymore. I'm just not completely sure how I should go about the situation now. I know for a fact that I'm going to get trashed by friends and her family for leaving my wife, and that I'm somehow going to come out as the bad guy. I want this process to be as clean as possible, but I'm not sure how. Now for the top advice before reading the update. The way she is behaving may be indications of her resorting to escapism due to diminishing mental well-being. Perhaps you and her sister can compose an action plan to approach her gently so she can seek professional help. Remember, your feelings are completely valid. When someone you love experiences mental health issues, it usually drags you down too. So, please consider taking up individual therapy too, and perhaps couple therapy sometime too. I know for a fact that I'm going to get trashed by friends and her family for leaving my wife, and that I'm somehow going to come out as the bad guy. Other people aren't living your life. Don't concern yourself with what they'll think or do. I want this process to be as clean as possible, but I'm not sure how. Except it will probably get messy. Life does. You won't just shake hands and part ways. There will be tears and heartache. Don't pursue her sister even after your divorce. Just move on. I guess I'm going to have to prepare myself for a rough time and be prepared to lose some friends. And don't forget the advice about not pursuing the sister. Never, ever, ever. Get divorced, but don't pursue the sister. That's a disaster waiting to happen. I don't want to pursue the sister, I just want to get out of my marriage as clean as possible. Contact a divorce lawyer. Don't make any promises or move out or anything before you talk to someone. There's never a clean way to divorce someone who's already angry and bitter. The best you can do is make sure you're protecting yourself legally and try to remain calm if and when she freaks out. And now for the update. My first post got a lot of traction. I appreciate all the supportive messages I have gotten, and especially all the people sharing their own experience. You definitely helped me to get some perspective in the matter. The past couple of days I have been able to clear my head about my marriage. I realized that this is not how I want to spend the rest of my life. I want to be with someone who cares about me and loves me. She clearly doesn't. I want to be with someone who respects me enough to put her phone down when we are having dinner and I'm trying to talk to her and isn't ignoring me to watch TikToks. But I'm done trying and getting nothing in return. I am done giving it my all and getting nothing back. I have been trying to communicate and make things better for a whole year and have been completely neglected. I still have love for my wife, but I'm not in love with her anymore. I want to move on with my life and find the right one for me and lead a happy life. I have already been in contact with my divorce attorney and am getting the process started. I turned 32 2 days ago, and my wife didn't even acknowledge my existence. Instead, she went out with her friends that night. Even her sister remembered my birthday and got me a present. She was even shocked that my wife ignored my birthday like this. We ended up having dinner together at a restaurant, and she even paid for the both of us. I didn't even feel the need to mention my birthday to my wife, because I knew that at this point she didn't really care. This really made me lock my decision. I don't care if she is depressed or not, if she doesn't even care enough about me to remember and acknowledge my birthday and would rather go out with her friends, I don't want to be with her. People kept saying that we should go to counseling and therapy to patch things out. For the past year, I have been trying to get my wife to couples therapy with me, but she just refuses and gets angry with me as always. I have tried everything I could have thought of to make my marriage work, but she pretty much shuts down everything I try. I've tried so hard to make my marriage work and put in so much effort, but now I have had enough of it. A lot of people tried to diagnose my wife with depression in my previous post, but I'm not a medical professional, so I can only talk from my perspective. To me, it seemed like she was living her own life without me, and that she would get frustrated with everything I got involved in. I'm not going to say if she has or doesn't have depression. That's not for me to determine. Whether she has it or not, I don't find that a valid excuse to treat me the way she has been for the past year. She didn't even have the respect to communicate and talk to me like a decent human being, instead of being on her phone or ignoring me. If she has depression, she'll have to figure that out on her own without me. A lot of people were also suggesting that I just want a divorce to get with her sister. That's not true. I want a divorce so I can get myself out of this miserable marriage, and so I can move on with my life. I have no plan pursuing her sister. I'm getting this divorce for my own well-being. Lisa said that she finds the divorce unfortunate, but that she supports my decision. She even suggested that we stay friends after because we get along great. When I told her that I was divorcing her, some little bit in me hoped she would realize what has been happening in the past year and try to apologize and make things good again or something. Instead, she started getting angry with me and started yelling at me. As always, instead of taking responsibility, she started blaming me. At this point, I stopped caring and didn't respond to all her yelling. I told her that my decision was final. I also suggested her to see a medical professional to figure her possible depression out, but what she does with that advice is really none of my concern. Lisa knew something was up and tried to talk with my wife about what was going on, but pretty much got dismissed and yelled at for getting her nose in our business. For now, I'll be sleeping on the couch and living my own life. Lisa informed me that she is moving out and was able to find a place, so I'll be taking the guest bedroom when she gets out. I'm in the middle of trying to figure things out with my lawyer, and hopefully we will be able to move fast in this divorce, but probably not. I'm mentally preparing myself for everything that will happen to me socially, and I accept that. I just want this to be over so I can move on with my life. OP, do not be at all surprised when your wife suddenly announces that she has a new boyfriend. All of her actions towards you points to her having found someone else. The way she treats you, the way she apportions blame, the dead bedroom, and the lack of respect towards you, all of it are indicators of an affair. Good luck with the divorce, and I hope that you can just amicably walk away and into a better life. It does read like an affair, but the fact that she's mad about the divorce, as opposed to happy or okay with it, personally points to it being an affair with someone that doesn't want an actual relationship with her. If she was having an affair with a single person, this basically frees her up. If she's having an affair with someone that actually doesn't want to be in a real relationship with her and she's single, that's a hit to the ego. At this point, I don't care what she might have been doing behind my back. I just want to get this over with, as quick and clean as possible. I believe him that he's not romantically interested in the sister, but he's discovered that it's nice to live with a pleasant person. Being appreciated is underappreciated. Depression can explain behavior, but never excuses it. Divorce is the correct choice. You can't make someone happy that doesn't want to be happy. And I've suffered from depression for years, and while yes, I'm more angry and disconnected, I'm also always very concerned about my husband as he's been my anchor in the worst depression. So I totally agree that it might explain a bunch of what's going in and the fact that she changed, but it didn't excuse her choices at all.